Just 1 second, guys. Just gotta make sure everything is gonna go great on the channel. Let's see here. There. Okay, we are live. Perfect. All right. Welcome everybody to the live stream here tonight on The Charge. I'm your host Bernie, giving you yet another live stream. And today, guys, of course, it's no surprise, it's no secret. We're not trying to hide anything from you. The LA Lakers have officially won their NBA championship for the 2020 season. After so much, I would say, so much divisiveness, what's going on with the country, with everything that's just been going on everywhere around the world, it seems like everybody's on edge. But luckily, basketball was able to bring us all together, and we saw that tonight as the LA Lakers were able to beat the Miami Heat in Game 6, and ultimately, the Heat kind of ran out of gas is kind of the way I would view and describe how the game went tonight. And so, the first things first, obviously, is to congratulate the Miami Heat on a successful season. They obviously did something that a lot of us did not expect them to do, which is to reach the NBA Finals and to actually, make it a somewhat competitive series, I would say. Ultimately, the last game was a little bit disappointing, but the game before that in Game 5 was probably one of the best games you could ever watch as an NBA fan. It was an amazing game. It was an amazing sight to see, but ultimately, like I said, it just felt a little bit short as the Miami Heat were just a little bit too tired. As we kind of look at everything that's going on here, let's look at Miami's stat line really quick. We see here that Bam Adebayo played 42 minutes, Jimmy Butler played 44, and obviously was just way out of gas tonight. I mean, 5 out of 10, that's a sign that Jimmy Butler was tired from all the shots that he had to take. You relied on guys like Tyler Hero. Goran Dragic also returned to the lineup. That's another thing that we'll talk about later on in this game. What sucks is that Udonis Haslem didn't get a chance to play, but obviously the other guys, Solomon Hill, Jones Jr., they got to play a little bit in that final moment, so that's cool for them to kind of get their NBA Finals moments, even though it's only a couple minutes. But it's always still cool to play in those Finals games. It's something you can brag about to your friends too. But yeah, man, I just think that the Heat just ran out of gas tonight. I think that's kind of the disappointing thing for me, is that, at the beginning of the game, it was a little bit competitive, but then ultimately the Lakers did the very smart thing and actually have Dwight Howard not start, which is good, because when Dwight Howard starts, it's honestly disappointing when you see Dwight Howard start in the game, because the problem with Dwight Howard starting is that defensively, he's a defensive player of the year, don't get me wrong, but the way that the NBA is played today, he's just not helpful. And he just doesn't do the things that you need him to do in order to get the victories. And so ultimately, the disappointing thing about it was that obviously Dwight Howard didn't get to play that much, but it is what it is. He gets a ring finally. Something that a lot of Lakers fans, the first time around when LA Lakers was doing their thing, that's kind of, they were, he was brought in there to win it with Kobe, but ultimately that didn't happen. But tonight he gets his revenge on, he gets his sweet comeuppance, or something like that, where it's like he finally achieved what he set to do in LA. Even though he wasn't the star player, he ultimately got them an NBA championship with his role playing minutes, and like I said, was a great role player. But Bam Adebayo had 25 points tonight. Did a couple things okay, but I think ultimately I did expect a little bit more from Bam Adebayo. I expected a lot more from Jimmy Butler, and I expected a lot more from Duncan Robinson, who tonight was a little bit cold. 3 for 7, 3 of 8 from the field, but also Tyler Hero was cold as well, with a 3 for 10 night and a 1 for 2 from the 3-point land. And then kind of looking at the LA Lakers side of things, this was a more interesting stat line. Obviously, LeBron James had the triple-double. Missed triple-double, end up going home with LeBron James tonight to the team hotel, celebrating him with champagne and doing all sorts of crazy things that the LA Lakers, maybe they'll do a pizza night, whatever, obviously, keeping it PC here on the channel. They're probably doing a lot more different things, but nevertheless, still a lot of fun for the LA Lakers fans, for people that are LA fans, for everybody that's kind of had a tough time, and our NBA fans and just fans of basketball, and just kind of wanting something to escape from all this kind of reality that's going on, whether it's political, whether it's with the COVID stuff. I mean, people are just trying to get away from everything. But nevertheless, like I said, it was still a fun game to watch. It was still a fun series to watch, I would say. But ultimately, I think what was disappointing about it at the end was ultimately the results of the Miami Heat just not looking like they were ready to play tonight. They looked like they were tired. They looked like they didn't want to be out there. And ultimately, it cost them a chance at a Game 7. And, Jimmy Butler was an amazing last game in Game 5. And then ultimately just came down a little bit to reality once Jimmy Butler got like a day of rest, he realized like, wow, I am so sore. I probably cannot move any further. So Jimmy Butler gets my respect. Obviously, I think he is officially, in the top 10 as an NBA player, overtaking a couple guys that I had in there. But nevertheless, like I said, this is more about LeBron James and what happened with his team. Rajon Rondo gets kind of my player of the game tonight with 19 points, 3 of 4 from the 3-point land, and then also you got Caldwell Pope, who also came to play. Danny Green did okay. I think the crazy and the sad part is that obviously there's a lot of deranged fans out there, and they're gonna say a lot of crazy things, their death threats and all that stuff. But ultimately, it's one of those things where I don't think I take it too seriously, because obviously, I shouldn't say that, but I think that ultimately the Lakers fans need to chill out when it comes to this stuff. I think whether it's LeBron fans, whether it's Lakers fans, whoever was sending you the death threats, you just got to chill, man. You can talk about how poorly Danny Green shoots. You can talk about how poorly his game has been. But ultimately at the end, you just can't, talk about someone's life like that. And hopefully nothing comes of that. I'm hoping that everything's okay there. I know his fiance was receiving some stuff, but congrats to him on winning another finals trophy. He won last year with the Toronto Raptors, now this year with the LA Lakers. And it's also, congratulations to Anthony Davis, who also wins his first ring. Anthony Davis did a tremendous job tonight. 19 points, 15 total rebounds, obviously dominated the boards, especially with the Miami Heat going with the smaller lineup, even with Bam Adebayo in there. He's only 6'9". So ultimately, it was a great game from the LA Lakers. And Miami, like I said, they ran out of gas, as you can tell by all their stats. You can tell by all of the movement, the turnovers. Only had 13, but still, ultimately, it was still a low-scoring night for a lot of these guys. And I think ultimately this came down to whether Andre Iguodala, ultimately, Eric Spoelstra, I think, is to blame for this loss, because I think that he should have adapted and adjusted his team to putting Kelly Olynyk in there to bring Anthony Davis to come out, right? Because Dwight Howard was not going to be starting. It was going to be Alex Caruso in the starting lineup, and we saw what happens when you have Anthony Davis as the 5, and everybody else is perimeter shooters and can guard the perimeter. It stretches the floor it helps keep a Dwight Howard type of player who's not really good at guarding perimeter players, and actually lets AD, who's actually really good at it, be out there. And I think that the Miami Heat should have adjusted as well by having Kelly Olynyk or Miles Leonard or whoever big you want to put out there to stretch the floor. You should have put him out there, because ultimately Bam Adebayo really cost you the game a little bit. And also playing Goran Dragic, I know he got you there. I know that he wanted to play so badly, but I think that ultimately it was a wrong choice to play him. Due to the fact that he's injured, he's not really giving you the 100% that you need, especially for an NBA Finals game. You need 120%, in my opinion. And so if you don't get that from your star player, it's obviously going to be really hard to win games. And obviously we saw that tonight with Goran Dragic only playing 18 minutes. It was 0 for 4 from 3-point land, 2 of 8 from the field, and ultimately only gave you 5 points. It's just not going to cut it. And I'm hoping that they can figure that out relatively soon. Man, tired tonight. But like I said, congrats more so to the LA Lakers. Like I said, after a hard season, after going on such a roll to stop the season, and kind of stop their momentum, who knows what would have happened, right? It would have been a different situation. Maybe the Lakers win this handily against the Bucks. It doesn't matter who they're playing against, but ultimately they came up victorious. They fought through the bubble. They got their situations going on, but I think ultimately at the end, the Lakers were the right team to win. I think that they were going to win anyway, even with the stoppage or without the stoppage. I think that the Lakers are just too good. I think Anthony Davis is an absolute bucket getter. I think he can get a bucket anytime you want him to. And so luckily the heel injury wasn't the big problem, because the heel injury would have been very effective. It would have really hurt the team a lot. But like I said, it didn't affect him very much. Maybe a little bit because he was only shot 17 shots, but only scored 19 points. But then we saw LeBron James really do a tremendous job tonight. Oh, excuse me. I'm so tired tonight. Ultimately, the Lakers did a really good job tonight. Kyle Kuzma, to me, is still frustrating to watch, I would say. Caruso played really well tonight. The hustle and the rebounding was there. I think the flopping wasn't there as much, so I really appreciate that, Caruso. Especially when it comes to playing, a Miami Heat team, playing Jimmy Butler. It's not an easy task, but I'm glad that Caruso kind of held his ground, and because he started, I think that he was more inclined to give you the hustle points instead of flopping, which is really good. Like I said, in that last game where Anthony Davis almost got hurt, that's where I was frustrated with, because I think that Anthony Davis is just too good to always be on the floor, 5 to 6 times a game. And they don't need anything from like another player kind of flopping and kind of creating a situation where Anthony Davis can get hurt. But like I said, I appreciate Caruso's hustle tonight. Was 2 of 7 from the floor, scored 4 points, but did the other stuff that was more important. Of course, when it comes to rebounding and giving you assists. But like I said, I think Rondo tonight was my player of the game, just due to the fact that he gave you 19 points. He attacked the paint, 8 for 11, 3 for 4 from three-point land. Shout out to him for winning a ring, not only with the LA Lakers, but also with the Boston Celtics. So I think he's the first player to do that ever. Or maybe he's on like a small list of players to do that, but congratulations to him. Frustrating that they've now tied the Celtics for most championships ever in the NBA, but it is what it is. You got to celebrate. This one was for Kobe. I'm not too mad about it, just for the fact that what happened, unfortunately, with Kobe Bryant and his family and what's going on in that situation. They ultimately won it for Kobe, and I'm really glad that they were able to give Kobe a nice farewell present. So now Kobe can go up there and kind of realize that Lakerland finally has another championship with LeBron James, and Kobe Bryant's watching and smiling from up above. But nevertheless, like I said, this was a very fun series. I would say Game 5 was probably the most fun game. I feel like that was the game where it was like really competitively close. I felt like there was it was back and forth, left and right. And I think tonight just was kind of the aftermath of what happened between both teams. The Lakers were able to recover easier. Meanwhile, the Miami Heat spent all their energy into that game, and they ultimately lost. And I think that it comes down to what can the Lakers do to really repeat and get better, and also what the Miami Heat can do to repeat and get better. I think this ultimately came down to the Miami Heat not having another star, not having another player play in there. I mean, we could talk about Dragic all day, but I think they really need another superstar. It's going to depend on who that is. So, we'll see what happens, man. Like, I think it's going to be a fun one to watch, but ultimately, like I said, the Heat were just a player short, I felt like, in order to actually compete and get and actually compete for the trophy. I think that's kind of what it came down to. And so as we kind of continue watching on and looking at everything, I think that what we need to see is, hang on one second. Sorry guys, I'm also kind of keeping track with what the Seahawks are doing as well. It looks like they just scored and went ahead against the Minnesota Vikings, if I'm not mistaken. I should give me the full play. Yeah, so DK Metcalf, shout out to DK Metcalf. He scored tonight. But let's go back to the Lakers and the Heat, right? I think I have a couple tabs open. We talk about how year 2 of LeBron and the Lakers turned into a title roller coaster. We remember how it happened. You have JaVale McGee, you had Lance Stevenson, you had a bunch of misfit toys on this LA Lakers roster in the first year that LeBron was there. But ultimately, they were able to kind of turn that roster from guys like Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram into Anthony Davis, and they were able to eventually capture the championship. And I think the bigger question now is, what do you do with a guy like Kyle Kuzma? What do you do with a guy like Danny Green? We know we criticize Danny Green. I think he's very inconsistent, and that's kind of the problem that I have with those two players, especially with Danny Green. Being a veteran, it just sucks that he's very inconsistent. But I think also as well as Kyle Kuzma. I think Kuzma could be used for some nice trade bait. And it also kind of leads to the next questions for the LA Lakers as well, as we talk about those two guys and what they're going to be doing, you know, to celebrate the championship now, but it's going to be next season where we're going to have to worry about it, right? Because if we look here, Anthony Davis has a player option for next year, and ultimately I don't think he's going to accept that. I think he's going to decline that and actually get more money. So you're going to see what happens as there's going to be more payroll to happen. You know, the only person that's on the books for 2021, 2022 is LeBron James. Everybody else is like done this after this next year. So I think they're going to have to definitely sign some players, especially for this last year in the 2020-2021 season, because they're ultimately going to have to look at it and say like, okay, you know, this is going to be our final push. What are we going to do? Because like I said, you know, 119 on the cap. It looks like they have enough to sign another type of max player, depending on what Anthony Davis does. Does he stay in his contract? Does he not? Because they're ultimately going to have to do something here where they're going to have to add a player. They're going to have to do something because this is just not going to cut it. We talk about situations with the LA Lakers. You know, Anthony Davis not being there really puts a damper on this team. You know, Caldwell Pope also has a player option as well. So we'll see what happens in that situation. It's kind of a weird scenario, in my opinion. And it does what happen. It does, you know, it does suck for the LA Lakers in the fact that they after this next year, their weapons are kind of small. This Kentavious Caldwell-Pope sign out. You know, you still have Avery Bradley on that contract. I think he's going to be another player you add. And I think ultimately, like I said, this is going to be a situation where they're going to have to sign another player. I think that although this has now become a league full of, you know, one-two combos, I think that they're going to start changing that and go back to a three-man thing. I think we kind of saw how the inconsistencies of their role players were, and I think that they don't want to have that again. So I could see Frank Vogel, I could see Rob Pelinka trying to make some trades. And that's one thing I do want to talk about as well. You know, talking about Rob Pelinka, you know, we kind of slated him in the past before. I think that we gave Magic Johnson a little too much of a pass just because he's a former player. And I think Rob Pelinka does deserve some credit for building this team. Jeannie Buss deserves some credit as well. But ultimately, I think Rob Pelinka and the coaching staff, Frank Vogel, I thought that Rachel Nichols really asked him a very backhanded compliment. Talking about, you know, you weren't the first Lakers choice. You were a surprising choice. Like, let me find the quote. I can find it later, but let me see if I can find the interview. Rachel Nichols with LeBron James. Because I felt like it was kind of a backhanded compliment to LeBron James. Sorry, not Rachel Nichols versus interview. Let me see if they have it. Let's see. Questions. NBA final. Let's see here. All, you know, I mean, we could talk about this at a later day. Kind of what happened with that situation. I kind of want to see, maybe it's on ESPN itself. I kind of go into their box score. If I can go NBA schedule, no. Gonna go here. Let me see if they're. Oh, oops. Maybe it's in here. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I think that sucks. I wish that they would actually have all the stuff up here because I want to talk about it. Let's see here. Let me see, view all videos. I would love to find the one about Frank Vogel. They don't have it. I'm gonna have to like look at it on Twitter and kind of look at the Frank Vogel. Maybe I can look on YouTube really quick. Because I thought it was a really backhanded compliment for Frank Vogel. You know, we understand that Frank Vogel wasn't the first choice, right? Like we get that, but I just felt like it was just not the right time to ask the questions. Hey, shout out to the channel The Charge. Let's see here. LeBron. NBA Finals. See here. No. Man, that's gonna be really frustrating. Okay. Anyway, to kind of talk about it a little bit, I thought that, like I said, I think Rachel Nichols kind of asked a backhanded compliment. Frank Vogel and the staff, Phil Handy, who is a great coach, a great assistant coach. I'm hoping maybe he gets a chance to, if he wants to, a chance to coach an NBA team, or, whatever his aspirations are for that in coaching terms. But I think that he deserves, I think Frank Vogel deserves a lot of credit, and so does Rob Pelinka. I think that these guys, we kind of heard in the commentary as well from Mark Jackson talking about how salty he is. It's like, it's not really that hard. It's like, I mean, yes, ultimately, having the best player in the world makes it a lot easier for your job, but it also makes it a lot more stressful, as we saw with Tyronn Lue, as we saw with Phil Jackson. These coaches have to manage the egos of the players. It's easier to manage a team like the Golden State Warriors when they're just a young team trying to grow up and trying to become the team that they are now, which is, almost close to a dynasty with the way that the Warriors were. And so, to be honest with you, I think that it's kind of insulting to say that, Frank Vogel and Rob Pelinka didn't get, executive of the year vote or even a coach of the year vote. Like I said, we get it. You're coaching with players that are probably the best in the world, Anthony Davis and LeBron James, but ultimately you still have to manage the egos, you have to manage the players, and they did a tremendous job this year. And if it wasn't for what happened with the COVID stuff, I think that Frank Vogel would have won it easily. I think Rob Pelinka would have won it too, but I think with what happened and then the Lakers struggled in the bubble, I think people were kind of questioning whether or not they were going to be even involved in this stuff. But I just think the frustrating thing about this whole thing is just kind of the is what we got from kind of the NBA world, and kind of disrespecting these guys because they are good players. They're great coaches, they're great players, they're great assistants, and it just sucks to see that we got J.R. Smith shirtless. Looks like also Giannis's brother won an MVP or won a ring, so that probably sucks for him. Let's see here. Want to find NBA Finals. Hopefully it just gives me kind of to talk about it. Shout out to the Lakers and all this other stuff. Kobe Bryant's added here, of course. And I think ultimately, like, what this all came down to, and maybe I'll do a different video because it seems like, it's kind of late night. People are chilling on a Sunday. So I think we'll probably end the live stream relatively soon. I'll probably go back on later this week to kind of talk about the games and to talk about the Lakers situation. But nevertheless, like I said, it was a lot of fun watching this series. It was a lot of fun watching the Miami Heat try and come back and win. But ultimately, like I said, they ran out of gas. Kudos to Jimmy Butler for doing his thing, but ultimately it was just not enough, and he had to do it so many more times. And, it sucks to say, but also congrats to LeBron James, winning your 4th title. Also, being a finals MVP again. I think you're the first person ever, I think, to win on 3 different teams. So, congrats to LeBron James in that aspect. So, it is what it is at this point. I think that the Lakers did ultimately the best job out there. I thought that their out of bounds plays were really good. I thought that their adjustments were really good. Staying Dwight Howard out of there and putting Caruso in was a great adjustment. And like I said, Frank Vogel deserves a lot more credit than I think we give him credit for. I think that, we can sit here and talk about, it's LeBron James, he does everything. But without the Phil Handy, without Jason Kidd, without Frank Vogel, and many of the other assistants on the team, I'd love to shout them all out because, it takes more than just the head coach and the assistant head coach. It takes a whole team. Your video coordinator, your defensive coordinator, your offensive guy, like it doesn't matter who. I just want to shout those guys out because those guys ultimately work so hard away from their significant others, away from their kids if they have any, and putting in endless hours of film, endless hours of practice plans to get these guys going. We talk about how it comes down to your superstars, but ultimately as well, it comes down to the game plan that you plan for those superstars, right? Because if you're a superstar and you don't have a game plan, you don't have anything going on, then ultimately it kind of leads you to what we get now, which is what the Lakers did. And kudos to all those guys who did a tremendous job for them. And much love and respect. I think now they can finally go home. They can enjoy being with their wives, their significant others, their kids, kind of chill at their own house now, and don't worry about the season until probably, hopefully December, but it probably will be January or February by the time we get started back up again. But nevertheless, guys, that's probably going to do it here for the Charge. I'll probably wait a couple more minutes as we kind of just look at all that's going on. You know, like I said, you know, the Lakers won their 17th and have tied the Boston Celtics. Ugh, frustrating, but ultimately, you know, it's a best. It's cool. It's really cool for the LA Lakers, the city of LA, to get a championship. I know that they're a very, just like the Boston Celtics, they're a very demanding group of fans. They're a demanding group of people. We expect excellence. We expect greatness. And that's one thing that I can respect the Lakers for, is expecting the greatness and excellence coming from NBA big men. I mean, there's one thing that hasn't changed. It's that NBA big man for LA has been probably the biggest reason as to why the LA Lakers have won their championships. And AD is now in the echelon of those big men, with Kareem, with Shaq, with Powell, with Chamberlain, and many other guys as well, that came and paved the way for these players to play the game. And ultimately, this was, like I said, it was a fun series, especially Game 5. But other than that, it was kind of a it was kind of just finals, you know. I mean, I expected a sweep. I thought it was going to be a sweep. It was looking like that. But ultimately, the Miami Heat did their thing. Jimmy Butler went off in 2 games, and that's the reason why they were able to stay afloat. But ultimately, I think they were just a superstar short. And I think with the Miami Heat, they're really going to have to look at trading some of those assets that they have on their team to kind of muster up trades and kind of see if they can get Bam Adebayo to shoot the threes more consistently. I think that's kind of the biggest factor for Bam as he continues to go forward in his NBA career, is being able to hit at least a decent amount of threes in his games, because ultimately I think that's the reason why they lost these games, is because he wasn't able to stretch the floor. Anthony Davis can kind of chill back on the pick and roll and not allow the drives, and then it allows not open lanes, and Duncan Robinson needs to be a little bit more consistent. You know, a little bit disappointed in the way that he played tonight. I thought he could have played a lot better, but you know, I think ultimately the Miami Heat overachieved the season. Ultimately got to the finals, won 2 games. They could have maybe won tonight if they would have had more gas in the tank, or at least another superstar. But ultimately, they just ran out of gas, and now they're just going to be chilling at home in their South Beach beaches, wherever their houses are at, and just kind of relax and find out when the next season starts, because that's going to be a very interesting scenario as we continue to follow along. Of course, we'll have some NBA draft videos. I might have my boy Brad on here to kind of talk not only Lakers, but also, you know, the NBA draft, as we talk about players that are surprising to us, players that we like, players that we don't really know about and are going to study on. And then ultimately, we're going to do another video on the Boston Celtics and how they can get to the NBA Finals. Like I said, I was disappointed in the way that they were today, or not today, sorry, you know, this kind of bubble, in the way that they played against the Toronto Raptors and the Miami Heat. And I'm hoping that they can correct that, because I think that they are just a couple pieces away from getting that championship. But like I said, you know, this isn't about the this isn't about the Celtics. This isn't about the Miami Heat. Tonight is about the LA Lakers and ultimately winning their NBA championship. And, you know, we got purple and gold confetti kind of draining down. And, you know, as like I said, a lot of Lakers fans are excited. They're happy that this happened. You know, we kind of see the explosions here. We see players. We see kind of the late second clocks. We see LeBron James holding his next championship. LeBron James, Finals MVP. Kudos to him. I think that this kind of, we look out here, I think we have the votes from all these guys. He was a unanimous winner this time around. You know, not sure if I think he's unanimous. I think that he definitely should have gotten at least 1 or 2 votes, but you know, you can't blame him. I think ultimately LeBron James did a very good job. You know, I'd like to see a little bit more people get, you know, like, why does Jeff Van Gundy have one? You know, Tim Reynolds, okay, I guess. You know, there's some people on here that I don't think deserve a vote. But you know, I think Jeff Van Gundy being one of them. I think although he's a good coach, I'm not going to disrespect him in the coaching aspect. But just commentary is just so awful. I'm sorry, it's awful. But you know, another thing too we got to talk about is, of course, this little situation. So let's listen to this.
I told Jeannie when I came here that I was going to put this franchise back in a position where it belongs. Her late great father did it for so many years, and she just, you know, took it on after that. And for me to be a part of such a historical franchise is it's an unbelievable feeling, not only for myself, but for my teammates, for the organization, for the coaches, for the trainers, everybody that's here. We just want our respect. Rob wants his respect. Coach Vogel wants his respect. Our organization wants their respect. Laker Nation wants their respect. And I want my damn respect, too.
I think ultimately that last line right there, the last little snippet from LeBron James was more directed towards guys like Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, and what he said about kind of Michael Jordan. And I think that too many times, I think there is moments where I feel like LeBron James does get disrespected. You know, like I said, we take his greatness for granted. I mean, his consistency, the way that he's able to get to the NBA Finals. Obviously, he was on such a streak until last year. And it just sucks to see that he doesn't really get the respect. And I think that's kind of what he's saying to the NBA pundits and everyone out there in the NBA is that, look, man, I may be old. I might not be at the peak of my career at this moment, but I still want respect, and I still want to be in that conversation of the GOAT. And ultimately, I think it is in that conversation of the GOAT, and I think we will still have this conversation of the GOAT till this day. LeBron James ultimately did the great job getting the NBA championship, winning the NBA Finals, winning the NBA Finals MVP. And, you know, you can't hate on that as he, you know, continues to kind of celebrate and win his NBA championship trophies. And we see a lot of players happy. We see players celebrating. You know, you got people talking right now. We kind of look at the Lakers film room. Defensively, like I said, was a beauty. Couldn't believe it. And we kind of just look around here. We see Goran Dragic in the game. We see Jimmy Butler kind of sub off. I think he ultimately was tired. I think Jimmy Butler gave up all his energy in that game 5 and game 6. He was just too tired, man. Like, he knocked some couple, you know, he's 5 for 10. I think he had 12 points. You know, it's a very disappointing night for Jimmy Butler in that aspect, but I can't blame him for that because I feel like he just gave up so much energy in those last 2 games that, you know, that they won. And I just think that they needed someone else to step up. And ultimately, Bam Adebayo was supposed to be that guy. And he just doesn't have the shooting capabilities to do that. And Goran Dragic just played hurt. I think that he shouldn't have been in the game playing. I think that he really hurt his team more than he helped. And I think Kelly Olynyk really should have been in there, or Miles Leonard. They really should have done a little bit more to stretch the floor out. And I think Eric Spoelstra kind of put that in too late, and ultimately was the downfall for the Miami Heat in this series. I mean, obviously the Lakers defense was suffocating. I felt like they did a really good job on that aspect, but ultimately the plays and what they did there, it just wasn't enough. And I just think that they didn't space the floor out. You caught Anthony Davis kind of chilling below the free throw line, so he doesn't have to come up and guard anybody. And it doesn't create mismatches for anybody. It doesn't create opportunities for other players. And ultimately, it was a disappointing night for the Miami Heat, even though they played so well in the last 2 games. Still disappointing to see that they came down and lost like this. I thought they could have played a lot better. But nevertheless, that is probably going to do it, guys, here on The Charge. Thank you once again for joining me tonight. Again, I know it's such a quick stream. I know that we didn't really get to cover that much, but now the question becomes, as we look to talking about the future for the LA Lakers, you know, does Anthony Davis stay? Does he go? What's going to go on with Anthony Davis? Because that's going to be the biggest question mark going forward in his career is, does he stay in LA and try and win another championship? I know he won a championship, but he has so many options. And I think that that's going to be the next question to talk about. And if he does stay, you know, what superstar do they bring in? Because I felt like the inconsistencies of Kyle Kuzma, Danny Green, KCP, even though KCP played really well in the NBA Finals, it really is going to affect the Lakers one way or another, especially for next year's championship, especially when teams are trying to build for this next championship run. You're going to see a lot of different things coming up for those guys. But like I said, guys, thank you once again for joining me here on The Charge. There's a couple questions we got to ask. 1, what do the Lakers do for next year? And 2, does Anthony Davis stay or does Anthony Davis go? Join me this week as we talk about that at some point during this week, as there's going to be no more NBA. So I'm going to have to, you know, hopefully fill in the void for the NBA withdrawals and give you guys some fixes of talking NBA. You know, I'll probably put out a video talking about my Boston Celtics and what they need to do. I'll talk about what other teams need to do. And like I said, we'll get my boy Brad on here to talk about other things as well. Talk about the NBA draft, talk about what's going on around the league, like what's the rumors and other stuff like that. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining me tonight on the live stream. Hopefully you guys can catch this video after the fact and kind of let me know your opinions and comments in the comment section down below of what the LA Lakers need to do, and to say congratulations to the LA Lakers, or if you're a fan of another team, let me know what your guys need to do to get to an NBA championship. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next live stream or video. Peace.